There are many names which we could potentially give to today's feast day. We could call it the Feast of the Light. Christ as the light of the world. We could call it the Feast of Consecration or of the Consecrated. Christ who is being consecrated to the Lord. We could also call it the Feast of the Dedication, etc. We notice, my dear brothers, that all the characters mentioned in the gospel of today have one thing in common. All of them. They have pledged their lives to the Lord. They have consecrated themselves to the Lord. They have dedicated themselves to the Lord. That is the bond that links and holds all of them together. Anna was a widower who decided at a very early age, not later than the age of 27, to remain for the rest of her life without remarrying after the death of her husband. She gave her life completely to the Lord. The Virgin Mary and Joseph are married couples who gave their lives to each other and also to the Lord, completely consecrated. Simeon represents, loosely speaking, the priestly and prophetic ministry in which a person gives his life completely to the Lord. And then the child Jesus is the apex, or if you like, in typical conventual style, he is the apotheosis of the life of consecration and total dedication to God and to humanity. The feast of today, therefore, is a call not only on religious, but also on those of other states of life to understand the sublimity of their vocation. And this is precisely what Lumen Gentium number 5, Perfecte Caritatis, says. It doesn't matter which vocation we are called to. The Lord wants nothing but our complete self-giving. God doesn't accept our halves, but our all, because he gave us his all in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ. That does not necessarily mean, in case you are having a second thought about your vocation, that all the vocations are the same. When God asks things from us, it is because he wants to do the same thing to us abundantly in an infinite measure. If he asks us to consecrate ourselves to him, to his service, it is precisely because he wants to consecrate himself for our infinite merit, our salvation. God, my brothers, can never be outdone in generosity. The feast of the presentation, therefore, is the culmination of several precedents, or what we call in theology types, found in the history of salvation, beginning with certain important characters and events in the Old Testament. In Genesis 22, we encounter the story of the sacrifice of Isaac, the only son that Abraham had with Sarah. Then in Exodus chapter 13, the Lord asked for the consecration of the persons or animals that first opened the womb. This was because he was about to destroy, by the same importance, the firstborn of the Egyptians, both cattle and persons. The firstborn, therefore, denotes what is most precious to all of us. We remember, for example, our first profession, our first Holy Communion, our first degrees, which some of you will be having in May, our first Mass, our first car, the first time we did this or that. And some of us, including myself, even remember our first girlfriends too. Whatever came first is the treasure of our heart. This, my brothers, is what the Lord wants to be sacrificed to him. This thing which is most precious to us. Because the Lord also gave on our behalf something which was most precious to him, his Son. The feast of the presentation draws our attention to certain facts about the life we have chosen. And there are three of these which I'm going to share with you today. Even though there could be more, I've decided to edit it to just three in typical Franciscan style. One, the consecrated life. My brothers, let nobody deceive you to sugarcoat anything. The consecrated life is difficult. I was told by a priest in Joburg that no, it is easy, only say yes. By then, I was still an altar server, but he cannot tell me that now. It's not true. The consecrated life is difficult because it requires us to constantly let go, to constantly die to something. Jesus himself testifies to this. He admits that to follow him is essentially a cross to carry. It's not easy. Matthew 16:24. Sometimes us formators, we forgo these things. It's a difficult life for this young person. This young brother said to leave everything to follow Jesus. Yes, I have to speak the truth because I'm proud to say that I was formed by the prestigious Capuchin College in Rome. And sometimes, and this is what the Capuchins tell us at Frascati, don't make life any more difficult for these young men. Our duty as formators is not to make life already difficult for them. We have to journey with them, console them, and help them to answer yes to the call until the end. Trust me, my dear brothers, we have two scripture scholars here. If I'm lying, they're going to repudiate me later on. It was not easy for the Virgin Mary to let go of Jesus Christ. Sometimes she came to look for him. Hearing all that Simeon was prophesying about the future of Jesus was very hard for the Virgin Mary to accept. She had to let go with a lot of difficulty because this was what God wanted of her. It wasn't easy for Christ himself to let go of the mother in his ministries. I know a Ugandan, OMI. The last time this Ugandan saw the mother was on the day of his first mass, after his ordination, and then his first mass. He was sent to Mexico, and he was killed in Mexico by the cartel, and together with some other people, and they buried him in an unmarked grave. It took the Mexican government about 18 months to eventually trace him. The parents never saw him again. It is difficult to be religious. In Rome, in 2022, I was present when Pope Francis gave a talk to seminarians on the dangers of smartphones and how pornography was negatively influencing the religious and the consecrated life. It is difficult, my brothers, to let go of some of these bad habits that will eventually ruin our vocation. So the first question that this feast of today presents to us is this: What are we struggling to let go of? What are the things that are tempting us? What are the demons that we must fight? We cling to these things. The second aspect from the feast of today is that it was the parents of Jesus who presented him to the kingdom. Parents must have positive roles to play in their children's vocation. Unfortunately, many parents today refuse to let go of their children, and they continue to influence them to come back home. I'm currently dealing with a case of a mother who does not want the daughter to return. One of the sisters, the daughter finished the postulancy and she was sent home for 3 weeks. The mother has imprisoned her. You're not going back because she misses the daughter. So the sisters have solicited me to try and talk sense into this mother. Ironically, some of our parents already made their choice to get married. We did not refuse them. So why can't they also let us make our own choices? For those of you whose parents are continuously influencing their vocation, tell them, Mom, Dad, I'm big enough, I can make my own decision. All you have to do is to pray for me. So the second question of 3 is this. Do our parents and family members and friends play positive or negative roles in our vocations? I like to keep my homily short because there are a few stories I could have told you, but that will be for some other day. The third is that many religious and consecrated persons themselves continue to live their lives carelessly, as if their vocation means nothing to them, as if they are regretting the choices they made. You need to look sometimes in the morning when the brothers are coming from mass, the way they drag themselves. We know the song which is coming from St. Paul, rejoice in the Lord always. Sometimes we have to motivate the brothers to do manual work. You motivate them to pray. Sometimes you even have to motivate them to eat. Oh yes! The feast of the presentation is given to us, my dear brothers, to help rekindle the love of our vocation and to bring to light its importance in the history of salvation and in the contemporary world. God cannot save this world without the cooperation of the world itself, and it is the religious and consecrated person that must lead the way. The candle procession that we just made is indicative of this fact. Since the life of the consecrated and religious is the very life of Christ in its most radical form, as expressed in Lumen Gentium number 6, therefore consecrated persons must shine brightest and must take the light to the rest of humanity. As soon as a religious or a consecrated person begins to conform to the values of this world, they will slowly extinguish the light. So our final question, are our light still shining, or are we ready to move on? I hope none of you are looking at your calendar when we may arrive quickly. We cannot leave questions unanswered without certain solutions. And so I'm going to draw 2 solutions from the gospel of today. The solutions to some of the problems in the religious and consecrated life in the contemporary world is found in the same gospel that we have just heard read to us beautifully by Brother Angelo. Anna never left the temple praying night and day. When religious don't make sufficient time for prayer, their vocation is finished. Show me, I can guarantee you, and I have mediated so many cases. Show me 10 priests or sisters who left, and I'll tell you the level of their prayer lives. Sometimes we complain, and I did that too. We complain how we cannot find sufficient time to pray because of many assignments. I think we also need to speak to some of these professors to tone down on the number of assignments. Francis of Assisi was very serious about this point, writing to Anthony of Lisbon that he, Anthony, could study, provided his studies did not quench the fire of prayer and devotion to which everything must be subjected. Jesus, as a consecrated person, faced many temptations and challenges to his vocation, but he overcame them because of his prayer life and because of his fidelity to his consecration. My dear brothers, please believe me. When we say yes to God, we must mean exactly what we say, because in the consecrated life, it is either all or nothing.